Tonight, before you go to sleep, you'll probably check your phone one last time, maybe adjust the fan, or pull a blanket over yourself. Then you'll close your eyes, without spending even a single second wondering if you'll still be alive when winter ends. Your ancestors didn't have that luxury. For them, the first cold wind of the season wasn't a sign that winter had arrived. It was a warning. Because once the temperature dropped, the world around them slowly stopped giving. The trees stopped feeding them. The rivers froze. The animals disappeared. Even the sun abandoned them earlier each day. Winter didn't come all at once. It came piece by piece until there was almost nothing left. Yet somehow, humanity survived. Not for one winter, not for 10, but for hundreds of thousands of years. The question isn't whether winter was deadly. It absolutely was. The real mystery is, why did it never manage to wipe us out? The answer begins with a simple fact, one that's surprisingly easy to forget. The human body was never built for winter. For millions of years, our ancestors evolved beneath the warm African sun. We lost the thick fur that protects most mammals. We never grew powerful claws to dig through frozen ground. And unlike animals that spend the winter sleeping, our bodies had to stay active every single day. Left alone in freezing temperatures, a human doesn't last very long. Your fingers stop working first. Simple tasks become difficult. Then your muscles begin to slow. Your thoughts become cloudy. And once your body loses too much heat, survival becomes a race against time. By every measure, humans should have been among the least likely animals to survive an ice age. Yet somehow, they walked straight into it. Not just once, again and again. Across Europe, across Asia, into lands where winter temperatures dropped far below anything their bodies were designed to endure. So, what changed? Most people would probably answer with a single word: fire. And they're right. But only partly. A campfire can warm your hands. It can chase away the darkness. It can even keep predators at a distance. But fire has one enormous weakness. It never follows you. The moment you leave its glow to hunt, to gather wood, or simply to fetch water, the cold is waiting, exactly where you left it. Which meant, if humanity wanted to survive winter, they needed a way to carry warmth with them. And that single idea would become one of the greatest inventions in human history. The answer wasn't bigger fires, it wasn't stronger muscles, and it certainly wasn't growing thicker fur. The real breakthrough was something far more ordinary: clothing. At first, animal hides were simply draped over the body. It was better than nothing, but only just. Every gust of wind slipped underneath. Your arms remained exposed. The hide shifted every time you moved. In a true winter, that wasn't protection. It was borrowed time. The real revolution came when our ancestors stopped wearing animal skins and started building them. Instead of wrapping a hide around their shoulders, they cut it into carefully shaped pieces. They stitched the edges together. They made sleeves that trapped warmth around the arms. They closed the openings where icy wind once crept inside. For the first time in history, humans weren't just wearing an animal's skin. They were designing it to fit their own. But creating a coat like that required something surprisingly advanced. A needle, not a sharpened stick. A real needle, with a tiny eye small enough to pull thread through. Making one wasn't easy. A splinter of bone had to be carefully shaped, polished, then drilled without breaking. One mistake, and hours of work were lost. Yet archaeologists have discovered these remarkable bone needles dating back tens of thousands of years. Proof that long before metal, long before factories, people were already solving incredibly complex engineering problems with little more than bone, stone, and patience. And the thread, it came from the animals themselves, strong sinew taken from muscles and tendons, binding each piece of hide together. It wasn't just clothing, it was portable shelter. For the first time, Warmth no longer stayed beside the fire. It travelled with the people. And because of that, the frozen world became just a little less impossible. Clothing solved one problem, but winter wasn't finished yet. Every evening, the temperature dropped even lower. The wind became stronger, and no matter how warm your coat was, you still had to sleep somewhere. Today, finding shelter is effortless. You unlock a door, step inside, and the cold stays outside. For your ancestors, there was no door to unlock. The obvious answer seems simple: a cave. And yes, caves were valuable. They blocked the wind, held a more stable temperature, and protected people from snow. But there was one problem. A good cave was incredibly rare, and if you found one, you probably weren't the first. Bears wanted it, hyenas wanted it, other humans wanted it. A cave wasn't a home, it was a prize, something worth fighting over. Which forced our ancestors to ask a remarkable question. What if we built our own shelter instead? At first, they used branches, animal hides, grass, anything the landscape could offer, but in places where trees barely existed, they found an extraordinary solution. Thousands of years ago, on the frozen plains of what is now Ukraine, people built homes from the bones of mammoths. Not one or two bones, but hundreds. Massive jawbones formed the walls. Enormous tusks curved over the entrances. Animal hides stretched across the structure to keep out the wind. From the outside, it looked impossible. But inside, it created something priceless. A pocket of warmth, one family, protected from a world that wanted them gone. Every gap was carefully sealed. Grass covered the floor. Hides lined the walls. Even snow became an ally. Because trapped snow doesn't just look cold, it traps tiny pockets of air, creating one of nature's best insulators. Winter had become so dangerous that humans learned to use winter itself, to fight back. For the first time, they weren't just surviving the environment, they were beginning to control it. But even the strongest shelter couldn't solve winter's greatest problem: hunger. Cold could weaken you, but hunger could erase an entire family. When winter arrived, the land slowly stopped giving. The berries disappeared. The trees stood bare. The ground became too hard to dig. Even the animals changed. Some migrated, others grew thin. Many simply vanished into the frozen landscape. Every sunrise brought the same terrifying question: what will we eat today? Unlike us, your ancestors couldn't drive to a supermarket. They couldn't order food. And they certainly couldn't afford to waste a single meal. If they wanted to survive winter, they had to prepare for it, months before the first snowfall ever arrived. Every successful hunt became an opportunity, not just for today, but for the weeks still to come. Fresh meat spoiled quickly, so they found a better solution. They sliced it into thin strips, hung it above slow, smoky fires, or left it to dry in the cold air. As the moisture disappeared, so did the bacteria that caused it to rot. A meal that would have lasted only days could now feed a family for months. But preserving meat was only half the battle. The most valuable part of an animal wasn't always the meat. It was the fat. Fat carried more energy than almost anything else nature could offer. When freezing temperatures forced the human body to burn thousands of extra calories, fat became survival itself. Our ancestors carefully rendered it, stored it, and protected it like treasure. Because during the deepest weeks of winter, a handful of fat could mean the difference between seeing another sunrise or never seeing spring again. The father quietly places the last piece of stored fat into his daughter's hands. She smiles. The parents exchange a silent glance. Neither of them eats. The fire crackles. Outside, the wind continues to howl. No dialogue, just silence. For a moment, it seemed as though humanity had finally defeated winter. They had warmth, they had shelter, they had food. But winter still had one final weapon. One that couldn't be stopped by fire, or clothing, or full stomachs. It attacked somewhere far more dangerous, the human mind. For thousands of years, winter returned, again and again and again. Each year it asked humanity the same question. Are you prepared? Those who weren't disappeared. Those who were survived. But winter did something unexpected. It didn't just test the human body, it changed the human mind. The cold taught people to think ahead. Hunger taught them to save for tomorrow. Dark nights brought families together around a single fire. Children listened, parents taught, elders remembered, knowledge passed from one generation to the next, long before it was ever written down. Every winter became a classroom, every story became a lesson, every mistake became a warning for the next generation. Little by little, winter transformed survival into knowledge, and knowledge into civilization. When spring finally returned, people didn't simply walk away alive, they walked away wiser, better prepared for the next winter, and then the next, and the next. Until one day, their descendants crossed frozen rivers, climbed snow-covered mountains, and reached places no human had ever seen before. Not because winter became easier, but because humans became stronger. Today, winter still arrives every single year. But now, you press a button. A heater fills the room with warmth. Food waits inside your refrigerator. A thick coat hangs by the door. Most of us will never know what it feels like to hear the first freezing wind and wonder whether our family will still be alive when spring returns. That comfort wasn't given to us. It was earned. One winter at a time. The greatest victory over winter wasn't surviving it. It was becoming the kind of species that could. Because before humanity conquered the world, it first had to conquer winter. But surviving winter created a new challenge. As the ice retreated, families followed the land into places they had never seen before. And soon, they faced a question even more terrifying than the cold. How do you survive when there is no water? Next episode, how early humans found water in a world without maps.